Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into a topic that hits home for a lot of families, understanding inattentive ADHD in children. We're focusing specifically on that 8 to 10 age range. Now, we've gone through your excellent source material, this really detailed parent guide, your notes, some key research. Our mission here is to pull out the most important nuggets, those key insights, to help you get up to speed quickly on this, well, really crucial topic.
Yeah, and we really want to highlight why this type, inattentive ADHD, often gets called the quieter one. It's so easily missed. It's not typically about the bouncing off the walls kind of energy many people think of with ADHD. It often shows up as behaviors that are just, well, misunderstood. Hopefully we can spark some aha moments for parents listening.
Okay, let's unpack this then, this quieter type. Because really understanding what inattentive ADHD is, fundamentally, that's the first step, right? Officially, the term is Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, predominantly inattentive presentation. That's the DSM-5 name for it.
Exactly. And the key difference, the reason it so often flies under the radar, it's because the child might not be overtly disruptive. Their struggles are more internal. They're not necessarily interrupting the class or causing chaos at home, which means it's just incredibly easy for those struggles to go unnoticed.
Right. And looking through the parent guide, it lists some really common things you might be seeing, like those moments when your child just seems to be constantly daydreaming, almost like they're looking right through you.
Mm-hmm. Lost in their own world.
Or struggling to follow through on instructions. You ask them to do something. Maybe they start, but it just trails off, doesn't get finished.
Yeah, task completion is a big one.
And getting easily distracted, not just by big things, but sometimes it seems like the tiniest, most unimportant detail can pull their focus away.
Absolutely. That lack of filtering we'll probably talk about later.
Plus, difficulty organizing tasks, keeping track of their stuff,
Yeah.
that messy desk or backpack syndrome,
Oh, definitely.
and the classic, forgetting daily things, like homework papers or, bringing that permission slip home from school, forgetting it again.
And this brings us to, I think, the most crucial point, really. Oh, key point. These behaviors, they are absolutely not because the child is lazy or isn't smart. It's so important to get this. ADHD-I is a neurodevelopmental condition. That means their brain literally develops differently, particularly in the areas that handle attention, executive functions.
Executive functions,
Yeah,
like the brain's manager, planning, organizing.
exactly, the command center. That and working memory. It's about how their brain is wired. It's not a character flaw or a choice they're making.
That's such a powerful reframe. It's the brain wiring, not deliberate behavior.
Yeah. So what does this all mean then? If it's neurodevelopmental, what's behind that different wiring? Is it all genes?
That's a great question. It really seems to be a mix of things. Genetics are definitely a huge factor. Research consistently shows ADHD tends to run in families. Some studies estimate heritability around 70 to 80%. It's significant.
Wow, that high. Yeah. But it's not just genetics. We also see actual differences in the brain itself. Kids with ADHD often show reduced activity in certain areas. The prefrontal cortex is a key one that's vital for attention, planning, impulse control.
Okay.
And then you have neurotransmitters. Think of them as the brain's chemical messengers. Often in ADHD, there are lower levels of dopamine and norepinephrine. These are crucial for things like motivation, alertness, reward.
So lower levels mean it's harder to stay motivated or focused.
Precisely. It impacts their ability to sustain attention and feel rewarded for completing tasks, especially ones they don't find immediately interesting.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me, thinking about that brain wiring.
Yeah.
That fun fact from the sources. The inattentive brain doesn't filter out unimportant stuff as efficiently, so everything competes for attention.
Exactly. It's like the volume is turned up on everything all at once.
So a bird outside the window isn't just a minor distraction. It's potentially just as loud in their brain as the teacher talking.
That's a good way to put it. It makes filtering out the background noise, both external and internal thoughts, incredibly difficult. You can see why focus is such a challenge.
Wow. Okay. So given all of that and how subtle it can be, this raises an important question.
How is it actually diagnosed?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's critical because you don't want to mislabel normal childhood distractibility. It needs a proper evaluation by a licensed clinician like a pediatrician, psychologist, or psychiatrist with experience in ADHD. They'll use rating scales, usually getting feedback from parents and teachers, because the symptoms need to show up in more than one setting, like home and school.
So you see how the child functions differently in different places.
Right. They also review the child's history, developmental milestones, school performance reports, and they'll do clinical interviews with the parents and maybe the child. A really important part is ruling out other things. Could it be anxiety, a learning disability, maybe even hearing or vision problems? Those need to be checked.
Makes sense.
And for the actual diagnosis, the criteria are quite specific. The symptoms like that inattention, disorganization, forgetfulness need to have been present for at least 6 months. And crucially, they have to be clearly impairing the child's ability to function socially, academically, or at home. And again, not better explained by something else.
Okay, so putting that all together, what does ADHD-I actually look like on the ground, say, for an 8, 9, or 10-year-old? The guide gave some great examples, like forgetfulness we mentioned, leaving the lunchbox, but it's that pattern. Forgetting homework assignments day after day.
That consistent pattern is key.
Distractibility, maybe they start their math homework, but 5 minutes later they're just staring out the window, totally captivated by clouds.
Or fixated on a tiny crack in the ceiling, yeah.
Disorganization, that backpack we talked about.
Yeah.
Like a black hole, papers crumpled, lost assignments, maybe half-eaten snacks from last week.
Sounds familiar to many parents, I bet.
Oh.
And the messy desk, yeah.
Trouble following instructions. You ask them to do 3 things. Clear the table, feed the dog, put their shoes away. Maybe they clear one plate and then just wander off.
Right, the multi-step directions are really hard. They might only catch the first or last part.
Slow processing speed sometimes. Like taking much longer than peers to answer a question or make a seemingly simple decision.
Yeah, it can take them longer to process information and formulate a response. It's not that they don't know, it just takes more time.
And that zoning out. Appearing to listen, maybe even nodding, but later you realize they didn't absorb anything you said.
That in one ear and out the other phenomenon. They're physically present, but mentally they've drifted.
It paints a really clear picture of internal struggle, not outward disruption.
Exactly. And the good news, the really empowering part, is that parents can make a huge difference. You really have the power to help your child succeed. There are practical strategies.
Okay, let's get into those. The guide highlighted building a routine first. Why is that so important?
Yeah.
It seems the predictability really helps lower that mental effort, that cognitive load, right?
Precisely. When things are predictable, the brain doesn't have to work so hard just figuring out what's next or remembering every single step.
So using things like visual schedules, checklists, keeping morning and evening routines really consistent.
Absolutely. And breaking big tasks down. Instead of clean your room, it's put the dirty clothes in the hamper, then put the books on the shelf, and make your bed. Small, concrete steps.
And the guide connects this back to the brain science, why it works. Those executive function challenges make organizing and remembering steps hard. Routines basically do some of that organizing for them.
Spot on. Another big one is positive reinforcement. And here's a subtle but important point for ADHD-I. Reward the effort, not just the final perfect result.
Because just starting or trying can be the hardest part.
Exactly. Acknowledge the attempt. Use specific labeled praise, not just good job, but wow, I love how you sat down and got your homework book out right away.
That immediate feedback seems key.
Yes. Research backs this up strongly. Kids with ADHD thrive on frequent, immediate feedback. It helps keep them motivated when their internal motivation system might be running low.
Okay, that makes sense. Then there's minimize distractions. This seems obvious, but maybe it's more critical than we think, like setting up a dedicated homework space that's quiet, clear of clutter.
Definitely. Reducing sensory input can make a huge difference.
Maybe even noise-canceling headphones for homework time. Or using a visual timer to help them see how long they need to focus.
Those can be great tools, and it's not just anecdotal. Studies show that environmental structure, like a clear workspace, really does improve focus and task performance for kids with attention difficulties.
Good to know there's solid evidence there.
And we also need to actively teach executive function skills. These skills don't always develop automatically for kids with ADHD-I.
So you mean like explicitly teaching, planning, and organizing?
Yes. You can make it fun, though. Use games that require planning or following steps, like a treasure hunt with clues or baking together following a recipe step by step.
Oh, I like that. Making it playful.
Using checklists for routines, color-coding folders for different subjects. These are practical ways to teach organization visually.
Great ideas. And finally, the guide really stressed fostering emotional connection. This feels so important, acknowledging that these kids are often misunderstood, right? They might feel like they're always messing up or letting people down.
Absolutely. They internalize those struggles. So validating their feelings is huge. Saying things like, I see this is really hard for you, or I know you didn't mean to forget.
Showing empathy instead of frustration.
Yes. And equally important, celebrate their strengths. Kids with ADHD-I are often incredibly creative, empathetic, funny, or have really unique ways of seeing the world. Focus on those gifts too.
That's so vital for their self-esteem.
It really is. Now, beyond these home strategies, it's good to know about the wider support network. Medication is an option many families consider. Stimulant or non-stimulant medications can be very effective for improving focus and reducing distractibility for many kids.
But always in consultation with a doctor.
Right, absolutely. A pediatric psychiatrist or a developmental pediatrician is the person to talk to. Medication often works best alongside behavioral strategies, not just on its own.
Okay. What about therapy?
Therapy can be incredibly helpful. Behavioral therapy is key. Things like parent-child interaction therapy or PCIT and behavioral parent training, BPT, these teach parents effective strategies and help kids learn coping skills.
So it helps the whole family system.
Exactly. And don't forget school accommodations. If the ADHD is impacting learning, the child might be eligible for a 504 plan.
And that provides things like,
Things like extra time on tests, preferential seating away from distractions, getting notes from the teacher, scheduled movement breaks, reminders tailored to the child's needs.
that sounds really helpful for leveling the playing field at school.
Yeah.
Okay, so for parents wanting to learn more or find support, you mentioned some great resources. Websites like chadd.org, Children and Adults with Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and understood.org.
Yes, both are excellent, reliable sources of information and community. Attitude magazine, both online and print, also has tons of practical advice and expert Q&As.
And books. You recommended a couple of classics.
Right. Taking Charge of ADHD by Dr. Russell Barkley is considered, well, pretty much essential reading. And Smart But Scattered by Peg Dawson and Richard Guare is fantastic for practical strategies on executive functions.
Great recommendations. So putting it all together, when should a parent really think, okay, it's time to seek professional help?
The guide offers good advice here. If your child's inattentiveness is consistently hurting their grades, if it's causing a lot of conflict or frustration at home for them and for you, or if you see it impacting their self-esteem, making them feel bad about themselves, those are definite signs that it's time to pursue a full evaluation and get a support plan in place. Don't wait for things to get worse.
That makes sense. Get support sooner rather than later.
Which brings us back to that really profound key takeaway for parents from the source material. Can I share that?
Please do.
It says, your child isn't refusing to pay attention, they're struggling to, and you have the power to help them succeed with the right tools, empathy, and support.
That shift in perspective, from seeing defiance to seeing struggle, that's everything, isn't it?
It changes the entire dynamic. It opens the door for connection and real help instead of just escalating frustration.
Yeah. And thinking about that, it really makes you consider neurodiversity differently. It's not just about managing challenges now, but about empowering these kids to see their unique perspective, their different way of thinking as potential strength down the road. So maybe for you listening, reflect on this. What's one strategy from today you could try implementing? Or maybe what's one assumption about inattention you held that's shifted now that might change how you interact with your child going forward? Something to think about.